Stop playing with them, right? You thought I was feeling you? That nigga a munch. Nigga eat it, he ate it for lunch. Bitch, on my body, I get what I want, like. You thought I was feeling you?
In August of 2022, Ice Spice released the song Munch. The Bronx rapper had already caught the eye of industry insiders, like Drake, but the music video for this track pushed her onto the front page of the internet. Looking to keep up her newfound popularity, 2 months later, Ice Spice posted a video on Instagram, previewing some new music.
How can I lose if I'm already chose? Like, if she feeling hot, then I make that bitch frozen. I get a bitch tired every time that I post, damn.
This is Bikini Bottom, Ice Spice's second single leading up to her debut EP, Like. The song's name references the animated children's show Spongebob SquarePants.
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh!
Despite this connection, nowhere in the song does Ice Spice say the words Bikini Bottom. In fact, the song doesn't have a single reference to SpongeBob SquarePants. So where did the song get its name?
I just wanted to make a lit song, like a lit, fun, party, baddie vibe. So I asked Riot to make me a Spongebob-Type Beat. And I wasn't actually sampling SpongeBob, but it just gives that vibe.
I wanted to find out what makes a SpongeBob-type beat. So let me show you what I found as we listen to Ice Spice's Bikini Bottom.
The party not lit, then I'd rather not go. If she feeling hot, then I make that bitch frozen. I get a bitch tired every time that I post.
It dawned on me that, there was a sink sponge, so I drew a square one, and I immediately locked on to the idea of this undersea nerd. And from that point on, I thought, well, that's the start, SpongeBob.
After Stephen Hillenburg pitched his new show, SpongeBob SquarePants, to Nickelodeon executives, he had 2 weeks to put together the pilot episode. Hillenburg wanted to use Hawaiian songs as the show's background music, to match the Pacific Island setting. But the music budget had already been spent on a dance number to Tiny Tim's Livin' in the Sunlight. Out of money and looking for music, the showrunners were forced to rummage through the Associated Press Music Library, a collection of music for movies and television. The tracks they found there would go on to become the foundation of SpongeBob's music. The second most used song in SpongeBob, titled Hawaiian Cocktail, comes from that APM library. This song gives a clean look at one of the instruments central to Hawaiian music, the steel guitar. Said to have been invented in 1885 by Hawaiian Joseph Kikuku, the instrument lays flat in front of the performer, one hand picking the strings, while the other maneuvers the steel bar up and down the fretboard. The limitations of the steel bar, as it slides between notes, creates the unique sound of the instrument. The most used song in all of SpongeBob is Grass Skirt Chase. It makes heavy use of those steel guitar slides to create an energetic track fittingly used as the chase music of the series. The appearance of steel guitar throughout the music of SpongeBob SquarePants would help the instrument eventually find its way off of the island, influencing music as far away as the Bronx, New York.
How can I lose if I'm already chose? Like, if she feeling hot, then I make that bitch frozen. I get a bitch tired every time that I post, damn. The party not lit, then I'd rather not go.
When Riot USA produced Bikini Bottom for Ice Spice, I don't think he used a steel guitar. I don't even think he used a steel guitar preset. But whatever he used ended up with, I think, a similar sound.
How can I lose if I'm already chose? Like, if she feeling hot, then I make that bitch frozen. I get a bitch tired every time that I post.
The instrument here comes across as some kind of string pluck, and it even has those slides like we heard with the steel guitar. This melody does have some differences from SpongeBob's music, with some note changes happening almost comically fast. These goofy flourishes are one way to add a fun lit party baddie vibe to the otherwise relaxing sound of Hawaiian music. Ice Spice has gone on to use this SpongeBob-type melody in some of her subsequent releases, like the sample in Gangsta Boo.
A baddie gon' get what she like, so what's your sign, cause I like you. Got a place we can stay for the night, but I'm too shy to invite you.
And even though Ice Spice only showed up as a feature, I think the Pink Panther-esque track, Boy's a Liar Part 2, also has some suspiciously similar strings.
He say that I'm good enough, got him out there, think about shit that I should've known. So I tell him it's one of me, he making fun of me, his girl is a bum to me.
So far, the SpongeBob influence on Ice Spice's music has only been in the melody of these tracks. So where does the rest of the beat come from?
No Suburban by Chef G.
Okay. Okay.
Like that's when I first heard drill, and I was like, nah, the beat is different. Like the energy is different. Like that's what inspired me first. And then when pop came out, I was like, nah, I gotta get on this, bro. Like
When Ice Spice went to her producer and asked him to make a SpongeBob-type beat, there were some unspoken assumptions between the two. The SpongeBob influence would only show up in the melody. The other half of the beat would come from where she comes from, the music of 2020's New York.
Picture my thought, give me lit. Gun on my head. 1.5. Send in the clip. Baby, don't trip.
Pop Smoke was one of, if not the biggest artists in New York drill. He was tragically killed in early 2020, but during his brief career, managed to bring New York's music into the mainstream with hits like Welcome to the Party. A lot of the sounds that make New York drill so recognizable show up in this track, and they show up outside of the melody.
Give me lit. Gun on my head. 1.5. Send in the clip.
These drums probably don't sound like anything you hear on the radio, starting with the hi-hats.
Give me lit. Gun on my head.
Instead of the usual hi-hat pattern that follows the beat, here the hi-hats have been moved into groups of 3. This makes up the hi-hat pattern at the heart of New York drill, but there are also accent hi-hats littered around this core rhythm. Further down below these hi-hats is the mid-range hit. I don't think New York drill has a specific sample like a clap or a snare, and here it's a rim. The first rim shows up where it would in any hip-hop song, on beat 3. But if we restart this drum loop and make it to the second and third rims, it sounds like they've been moved to beats other than 3. These second 2 rims hit either slightly early or slightly late. Directly on beat 3, nothing happens. Finally, we get to the low frequencies. There's a kick, which you see in just about every song, and a bass, which is a little more interesting. The synth bass here hovers around 1 or 2 notes, until it suddenly decides to slide up an octave when the phrase ends. This bass, along with the rim and hi-hat patterns, make up some of the conventions of New York drill, all in this one Pop Smoke song.
Gun on my head. 1.5. Send in the clip. Baby, don't trip.
These drum patterns started well before Pop Smoke began making music, and they carry on after his death in other artists that continue to pick up New York drill.
It's not bad, they be on my ass. I could hear you hating from the back. Balenciaga baddie got a bag. Nigga munchin' ate it from the back. Nigga feeling gotta play it cool. Got the zaddy, I'ma make a move. Breaking records and I'm breaking news. Bitch be pressed like who you?
After Riot USA finished producing the SpongeBob-inspired melody for Bikini Bottom, he still needed to fill out the rest of the instrumental. And what better way to represent his hometown and Ice Spice's than with the drums of New York drill?
It's not bad, they be on my ass. I could hear you hating from the back. Balenciaga baddie got a bag. Nigga munchin' ate it from the back.
We've got the hi-hats that follow that same triplet pattern.
It's not bad, they be on my ass. I could hear you hating from the back.
And a little bit lower, the rim has been swapped for a clap, but it still does anything except hit on beat 3.
It's not bad, they be on my ass. I could hear you hating from the back. Balenciaga baddie got a
And finally is the bass, which actually doesn't do what it should in New York drill. Maybe it's the difference between Brooklyn drill and Bronx drill, but Riot combined the kick and bass into one instrument, something a lot closer to the 808s you'd find in the rest of 2020's hip-hop.
It's not bad, they be on my ass. I could hear you hating from the back. Balenciaga baddie got a bag.
Between the hi-hat and clap patterns in the song, Riot and Ice Spice laid a foundation of New York drill, and then on top of that built a Spongebob-type beat.
It's not bad, they be on my ass. I could hear you hating from the back. Balenciaga baddie got a bag. Nigga munchin' ate it from the back. Nigga feeling gotta play it cool. Got the zaddy, I'ma make a move. Breaking records and I'm breaking news. Bitch be pressed like who you?
That covers where the Spongebob-type beat of Ice Spice's Bikini Bottom comes from. But how do you make something like it? How do you make a Spongebob-type beat? To match the Hawaiian music of SpongeBob, you don't need a steel guitar melody, but you need something that sounds like it. The melody here is played by a metallic sounding guitar, with plenty of slides thrown in to match that distinctive sound from the steel guitar. To help this part sound even more animated, you can add some long distance slides or comically fast note changes. With the SpongeBob influence on this beat covered, we can bring in some New York drill. The drums here followed those New York drill patterns, with the hi-hats playing triplets and the rim moved off of beat 3. The 808 here combines the kick and bass from Welcome to the Party, creating a bass instrument more similar to the one in Bikini Bottom. Finally, we can finish off this instrumental by seeing how Ice Spice would sound on the track.
Look in the mirror, I'm feeling me. Stacking money with a ceiling. 20 to stand on the couch, went out of town, fuck if we feeling me. He like the way that I dress. Throwing Balenci to flex. Like Mimi, I got him obsessed. Them bitches see me as a threat.
That wraps up this new instrumental, inspired by the Ice Spice song, Bikini Bottom. The new melody has more of a cutesy vibe, swapping out the almost Middle Eastern sound of the original Ice Spice song, but I think it still captures that animated feeling and combines it with the aggressive drums of New York drill to make for a Spongebob-Type beat. Maybe you can use these ideas in your own music, or just listen to this track a little differently. Thanks for listening. Leave a comment and let me know what you think of Ice Spice's Bikini Bottom. Don't forget to subscribe to Sound Selection on YouTube, check out the podcast, and follow on Instagram.